This video is going to show you how I painted the rest of the skin of the Gryphcharger and also the scales and the claws on the front legs. If you want more and exclusive content like this tutorial on how to paint fur on beasts, check out my Patreon. There's a link up here. There's also a PDF document about the colors that I used for the Gryphcharger. Thanks for checking it out and enjoy the video. So let's see. Maybe start on this side because I'm not really very far so far on this side. Okay, I need this to be a bit thicker. And I really didn't pick a good time for wet blending, but I'll still try it. Okay, need to make sure again, it's my mistake usually, got to make sure to cover less area, to try and cover less area with the blending. I think then it should work. that there's some white showing and that it could be a bit rough. Okay, I'll try to blend this one more time, simply because I feel the red is not really as strong as I want it to be. Like I said, I just want to keep the intensity of the red. Okay, let's cheat a bit here. I think it needs a bit of a gradient, that it is not just red. Okay, just playing a bit with how that dark blue looks over some bright red. I think that's an interesting effect. So the tricky thing is going to be how we're going to highlight this area. Just painting a few shadows and doing some black lining along the way where the straps are actually hitting. Okay, for the scales, I decided to use the base color of the purple. Let's see how we're going to do this. And I decided to paint them as if they were some kind of non-metallic effect. So just painted one side and then painted a dark blue next to it, and then faded out to the base color again. So I'm going to do that here as well, starting on this side and painting that purple red base color, fading in a bit towards the middle. And on the other side it's fading out towards the outside. Forgot to paint some part here. I'll just paint that black blue again. Okay, going back in with the purple. And like here, I started more light at the bottom and just have it fade to dark blue up here, so that it integrates a bit better with the blue that is already there. So I'll also do that here. I still want to cover most of it with the base color so it gets that purple tint, at least on this side. Okay, and for the sake of drawing everything a bit more together, I am highlighting it with sandalwood, the base color that I used here for the lighter areas. Okay, and speak about highlights, I just mix a bit of that sandalwood in. And start by getting or becoming a bit lighter towards the inside. Then also highlighting the edge up here. And I feel there's a lot more saturation in here, so I'll just get a bit of the red back into the color gradient by applying a wash of red. Well, base color mixed with red, basically. I think that looks a bit better. I'm also going to tint this area outside. Then a bit of pure sandalwood into the mix so that the corners and the edges can be a bit highlighted. Okay, Kidium, great. Alright, so maybe again a bit more red, because if I compare this side to this, it kind of feels desaturated. And I really want the effect that I got over here also on this side. Just get to make sure that it's not looking too pink. Seems okay so far. Okay, more edge highlighting, but I'll do this just selectively. I don't really hit the whole edge. Just the very exposed edges and corners. And then I can also add a scratch maybe here. And the second one here. and I'll just fix the edges here, because I touched some of the other side with the red as well. I wanted this to be a sharp, sharp transition between the blue black and the more pink red other side. So I'll just get that back here, and again touching this a bit more with blue. Maybe we can also tone down this already, because on this side we also have the gradient of being really light and saturated, and then going up here and being desaturated in blue. And I think I'm also going to paint a few of the scales that are below, more towards the toes. I'll also paint them in that style. Or maybe just paint one toe that style and the other ones in a more bluish highlight, so that should add a bit of interest, maybe, hopefully. Again, adding a bit of a gradient within the scales, and I think I'll touch those just a couple more times so that they are getting more intense. Also back here, there's a few areas that I think I'm going to paint a more skin tone color. I hope my PC is not going to Okay, now I'll just highlight the more softer tissue back here with some pink. Not too worried about getting a gradient done here. I'll just use the base coat as black lining and keep it in the lower areas, and just touch the higher ones with two coats. touching a bit less area than the first one. That also gives the effect of some highlighting, some gradient. Okay, back to the scales. I'm going to highlight them the same way as I did up here. Just adding more and more. Yeah, in this case it's sandalwood again. And then going for some white. Okay, also touching those areas, even though I probably want to do them in a lighter shade of purple, since this is, yeah, probably softer tissue than the scales up above this area. We'll see. Don't want to do it too light, because this is supposed to be a rather dark area, since we have a gradient from dark to from light to dark. I want to keep that, so let's see, don't want to overdo it. So maybe I should just focus on the scales. Okay, focusing a bit on the edges here. So everything that's pointing up is going to receive some white highlight. And if I have the feeling that this is too harsh, I can still go in with a lighter color and just paint over that. And it will tint down the white and bring up the darker areas a bit, and by that I also get a gradient. Okay, also since this is really light, I think I'm going to touch the edges here a tiny bit, with white, just to maximize contrast. Maybe also this. And just adding a tiny dot of white. Okay, then I have the edges here. I would just want to give them a bit more contrast by touching them with white. Okay, and like I said, I want the tissue here to look a bit more soft, so I'll also paint that red so that we get a pinkish tint when we highlight it. Okay, so I already touched those claws with some it's called brown gray, so I don't want to go for just straightforward gray. There's a tiny bit of, yeah, it looks a bit like sandalwood, just darker. Again, to go with the theme of trying to keep everything drawn together a bit. Okay, then starting where I want to put my highlights. Add some white to the mix. And just paint the base for the areas that should be really light. In that case, the arc that goes up here, and also the lowest side of this groove. And I'll just dab on the white. So I'm guessing this is, yeah, just horn material that has a certain texture, and then it will also get scratched a lot, so I don't really want that super smooth gradient. I want some texture in. Like you can see, there's a few scratches that I'm going to paint in, like this. Okay, so since this is facing up, I think I want a few more highlights here. Just a tiny bit more light. And then maybe as it curves down, also here. Okay, let me just double check if there is a few areas that could need some highlight. I'm especially looking for stuff that bends upwards or just looks right up. I think overall we're doing okay. Maybe here. And usually when I highlight curves like that, let's find another. So yeah, this is a curve that's curving downwards, but it still has a middle or a lowest point, and that's usually where there's a lot of light reflecting. So I put a light dot that is wider than the actual edge, just to trick the eye into thinking that is a reflection. Oh yeah, we need to highlight this, so let's do that. So I'm going back to blue, and I think I'm going to do the scales last, so I'll just highlight what is basically skin without scales. Alright, so let's do those. Scales. Just need to get back some of my red. And since I cut this in blue but I wanted red, I'll just paint a bit of black over it. Okay, I'll just cheat a bit. I went for just the red on the outside here, but I think I'm going to paint the middle toe red here. Let's see if anyone notices it. Okay, starting with some mix of black and red. Yeah, and I guess I'll do the outside in red as well. Just to have the the contrast of the blue and the red on the outside as well, like we have on the other side. I think that kind of works pretty good. So yeah, just keeping with the theme here, and I'll just do the half that looks up in this bright red. Well, bright is relative, of course, but it's certainly brighter than black. So that means we also have to shade that down one more time. This is too red for my taste. I feel like the transition is a bit too rough, so I'll just give it a wash to draw it together before I move on. So let's just wait for that to dry. Okay, so the edges, just giving those a highlight, and the ones facing down I'm also highlighting with red, just like I said, to frame the red. To frame the black, sorry. Wow, it's so hot I can't even think straight anymore. So just to make it a tiny bit more interesting, kind of like you would probably paint a gem or something like that. Just trying to work with contrasts as much as I can. Alright, I think this is a tiny bit unspectacular up here, so let's give this a bit of an edge highlight. And we can add a scratch, I think. Maybe a second one somewhere else. Just some tiny detail. Okay, just painting a bit of a base of blue again. The really dark blue is going to act as shading already. What I actually do is I kinda try to texture it like you would texture fur. So I'm painting more massive, more coherent layers of blue and then into the shade color. I'm painting a few streaks of the lighter blue so that we have some texture going on, like this. And what did I add? I just added white, I think, on the other side. So I'll just go a tiny bit lighter. And again, I'll just try to mimic that, adding less of the solid layer higher up. And where possible, I'm already adding those streaks or lines. So that hopefully adds a bit of an interesting texture. We'll see how it looks in the end. Okay, so mustn't forget the solid layer. Just always a good idea maybe to start wider with the first two colors. Again, just going for a very tiny layer that is going to be consistent front to bottom, well, front to back. And then some lines reaching into the darker areas. Alright, I think that works. And now I did this interesting texture here that I don't have here. So we have to see if we can add that and not screwing things up while doing so. Okay, I think we're going to get away with adding a bit of this texture. Just want to tone it down a bit where it gets darker. Not to overdo the effect. Just maybe do hints of it up here. Yeah, now that does look a bit less smooth than it did before, but I think the effect is just interesting enough to warrant for it. And I think especially on this side it does look really intriguing. And I'm always striving for, yeah, to finding some texture. I think you could even get away here by not adding white at all, and then it will also look really good. Just because the shadow is already really dark, so yeah, definitely like it. This color is really not... Coverage is really bad. Kinda annoying. Would be interesting to see what it does on an airbrush. Kind of like where this is going. Just adds that extra. It reminds me of, what was it? Maybe an old codex of a Chaos Army. Orange to blue, so that's really warm orange to rather chill, rather cold color. Do you use pure colors or do you mix them with water? Let's see, I can show you. I mean, sometimes I will use pure colors, especially as I was setting up the red up here, and especially when I was doing the wet blending, I was going for pure colors. But when I do this, yeah, I'll just put my brush into the water once, and then I go like this. So it's not really pure color, it's more of yeah, just maybe 50-50, probably a bit more color than water, and then I just dab it on. So just doing dabbing movements, and I don't really like this. It always, the thing is with different colors, you have to thin them in a different way, even within the same range. So for example, that orange and especially the red from earlier, if you thin them even more, the coverage will be really crappy. So sometimes you can just use the colors out of the bottle, and yeah, you just have to try it and adjust as you move along. That's always a tricky thing for beginners, because they get used to a certain way of thinning their colors, and then they get a really shitty color that it's way different from the others, and then they're like, oh my god, what's going on? And it even phases me, right? Because the red just didn't work the way I wanted it to work. So but yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah, this compared to this does look almost desaturated, which isn't bad, but it just looks different.